Major funding for these broadcasts is made possible by grants from Capital One Bank, New York Community Bank, Eastern Consolidated, M&T Bank, Sterling National Bank, Meridian Capital Group, Customers Bank, Ariel Property Advisors, Dime Community Bank. Additional funding is made possible by grants from AM Trust Title, AVR Realty Company, Avison Young, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chase Commercial Mortgage, Citizens Bank, CPEX Real Estate Services, Colliers International NYC, Cohen Equities, Collins Building Services, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handler Real Estate Organization, Handro Properties, Hodges Ward Elliott Inc., Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Madison Realty Capital, Matone Group, Mercantile Bank, New Banks, Newmark Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rockefeller Group, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Meringoff Family Foundation, the Moynihan Organization, Moynihan Capital Partners, and these friends.
Made in America. That's what I like. Today, the tie made in America by one of our guests. The suit made in America. The cufflinks made in America. So today we want to talk about products made in America and where they're made in America. So my guests today include Joseph Abboud, the legendary designer who is the creative director at Joseph Abboud at Tailored Brands, the place where we manufacture a lot of products in New York City at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. I have Clare Newman, who is the Executive Vice President and Chief of Staff of the Brooklyn Navy Yard Development Corporation. The man who's fabricating, making furniture, making metal products at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, Robert Ferraroni of Ferra Designs. And last but not least, windows and doors are made in America. They're made up in Allenville, New York, and I have the COO of Optimum Window Manufacturing Company, Candido Perez. So let's go to you. You're upstate, he's manufacturing up in New England. When you moved from the Bronx to upstate, how was the transition? How hard was it to get people to work up there? How was it to get quality craftsmen?
It was an evolution. I think, we were running out of space and we had to make a decision. And we always maintain a summer home in upstate New York. So basically, the transition went, we moved out of 20,000 square feet and moved into 60,000 square feet. And we brought the people up with us. And slowly but surely, that solidified the work base. And then we built off of that. So we actually relocated about 30 individuals at that time. And now we're up to about 113 employees.
Now, you're selling your product all over America now?
Nationally, and we export. We do a lot of military establishments across the globe.
And what's your major product that you're making? Mostly on windows or on doors?
It's a combination of windows and doors. You know, we do, again, for the military, for prisons, we do a lot of high-end residences, especially here in New York. But we do a lot of work in Montana and on the West Coast as well.
So how the guy who grew up in Brooklyn, okay, right?
Yep.
Okay, who went to Pratt, get involved and moved from Williamsburg manufacturing something to the Brooklyn Navy Yard?
Wow. Well, that's an interesting evolution. with Ferra Designs. We started in a very small space out in Williamsburg, and over the years, a lot of the buildings or industrial spaces that we were working out of, at some point in time, they were converted over to co-ops, and we had to move out. So at some point, probably close to 18 years ago, I wanted to stay or find the place that was stable, in essence. So the Brooklyn Navy Yard is very close as part of Williamsburg, so I ended up looking for industrial space there, and they've been very supportive.
So in essence, you were a pioneer to the Navy Yard, because the Navy Yard was there, okay, largest, how large is it?
300 acres.
300 acres and so many buildings. But 18 years ago, 17 years ago, it wasn't hip to be at the Navy Yard.
Yeah, not at all, yeah. Yeah, this is correct. Actually, I knew one person in the Navy Yard, and they actually did architectural metalwork. And I had always gone into the Navy Yard just out of curiosity, and being a Brooklynite, growing up in Brooklyn, I was always fascinated with the Navy Yard. When I actually walked around and I introduced myself to some of the companies that may take me on as a tenant, I just found that it was stable. You're able to park your car. There were so many advantages of being so close to the city, so close to all the bridges and whatnot. So it felt like a good fit.
With Candido, we know it's a window. You know, it could be custom, it could be a door, or it could be unique, different products. What's your product?
Well, we don't have one specific product, although we have a product line that we're developing through an appendage of our company called 50A Project. So it's our in-house design studio, and we're actually designing everything from audio equipment branded on the Conco to tables and furniture and seating. But a lot of the metalwork that we execute is really geared towards the high-end arena. So we're doing everything, crafting things like spiral staircases, feature walls. There's a diverse range of work that we take on.
How do you secure your type of labor?
Well, we're actually fortunate enough to work very closely with the Brooklyn Navy Yard. They have an employment center, and there are many times where during the growth of the company, we would work hand in hand with the Brooklyn Navy Yard and actually interview people that they've qualified.
How hard is it to get craftsmen and people who are quality and trained to do it, okay? You're making men's clothing, you're making suits, you're making jackets, you're making other products over here, you're making ties. How hard is it to find people to go into the world of manufacturing?
Well, for us, and now it's been 30 years in the location, we're in New Bedford, because of southeastern Massachusetts, which had a history of manufacturing, there's a culture there. Of course, we've lost a lot of jobs and a lot of businesses have gone offshore. When we launched the collection in 1987, the idea was to be an American designer making in America. And so that culture has gone from generation to generation of family members working in our factory who know we're consistent, and we're so proud of that. And it really is a balance of art and commerce, really what we do, because we're manufacturers. So it's not an artisan shop. So we really need skilled labor, but we also need to have the idea that it's still something that we have to produce en masse. For example, I was mentioning we do approximately 100,000 custom suits a year. Each one is individually handmade, so you need a skilled labor force. But we've been very fortunate to have a very stable situation.
Now, how do you decide to ever get into the manufacturing business? You were always in design,
right?
But how do you decide to go into manufacturing? And 30 years ago, people were leaving the
That was
business.
the beginning of sort of, well, not the beginning, in the midst of people leaving, but my partners were Italian. And we always say, and I may have mentioned this to you before, that we have an Italian factory in the middle of New Bedford, Massachusetts. Because the idea was, if Giorgio Armani was making in Italy, he was an Italian designer. So our idea was, as an American design company, let's make in America. So it was part of the culture and the birth of the brand.
How important is it to the consumer today of your products that the product is made in America?
I think it's very important. They want to have a sense of security that whatever they're purchasing is going to be supported. And that's something that's kind of hard to do in the construction industry, to outsource something in Europe, bring it in, and if there's an issue, who's going to take care of it?
But there are windows made, you know, in China and all the other products, which are not over there, and doors, which are limited, okay? And it's a different quality and a different product.
Right.
You know, even though you have a catalog and assembly, you are really custom designing windows in many cases in certain high-end homes and so on.
Correct.
Most of your products are all custom designed.
Correct, correct. So I think we're circling back to people appreciating handcrafted products made in America. I think people are recognizing the value of, you know, being able to visit the manufacturer and seeing their, whether it's a suit or a window or a spiral staircase, you know, the idea of actually watching the assembly of these components and knowing that you have qualified people monitoring all the steps and all the phases that would make it successful.
Let's talk about the Brooklyn Navy Yard and why manufacturers want to be at the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Yeah, I think it comes down primarily to the fact that we're a mission-driven landlord. And, you know, Rob alluded to this earlier, but when people come out to the Navy Yard to see space, they look at us and they know that at our bottom line, what we care about is supporting their business and supporting the employees who work there. And so there's a sense of stability in coming to the Navy Yard that's really important, in that they know they have a landlord that isn't going to jack up their rent at the end of the term. It gives them the safety and security they need to invest back into their business. And then I think too, you know, you're right, 15 years ago it wasn't hip to be at the Yard, but today we have this extraordinary ecosystem of businesses who I think show to the other businesses who are looking to start up in this world that there's a future there.
I remember, because I did Joseph's life story on my other show,
Yeah.
you know, this was a guy who worked for Louis of Boston, and, you know, he wanted to go into business on his own. He needed that opportunity. He had the opportunity. Do you provide the incubator?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's core to our model. You know, one example is Cry Precision, who's now one of our, I think, big success stories. They have around 200 employees. But they started out as two guys who'd graduated from Cooper Union, engineering degrees, had a dream about making high quality goods for the US military. And they started in the Yard in 1,000 square feet. And over the course of the past 15 years, they added a space here, added a space there, got new contracts, built upon their company, hired working people from all over Brooklyn.
That's great.
And now they're in a brand new facility that we worked with them to build out at 60,000 square feet. They have 200 plus employees. And, you know, that was a 15-year process where we really worked, I think, hand in hand with them to help them through that growth period. And nowadays, too, we actually have partnerships with incubators who are at the Yard themselves. So New Lab is probably the best example of that, where they support about 60 businesses now in their space who, you know, who knows if they're going to be successful. But they're working on products that are manufactured, that are hardware. And for us, if even a couple of them graduate each year into space at the Yard where they're assembling, where they're doing manufacturing and hiring people for good middle-class jobs, that for us is a success. And it's really, honestly, we find it's the homegrown talent in New York that grows here and that manufactures here. And so making sure we're trying to work to foster those young companies is really important.
Joseph, if you wanted to have, okay, your ties are made here.
Yeah,
but
on 36th Street.
Okay. Is it made by you or is it subcontracted?
We have a relationship. It's made by a specialist, and in our business, we always try to integrate with those people who are experts in their field. And there's a great sort of symmetry to the kinds of products we create, so that it all works together. From a fashion point of view, you really have to make sure that everything is sort of styled appropriately. But at the base of it is quality. That's the most important thing. And there are a number of, you've got it proven right here, there are a number of great American companies that make incredible quality. And I think there's a mood in this country to be proud to be made. It's not just a label to stick on something now. It's deeper than that. And I'm proud to have done it for as long as I have, but I'm always thrilled when I see new companies, and that it comes back to the great work ethic that we've had as a country, and how people can, you know, coming from a blue-collar background, you know, having the chance
You
to...
know, if you follow the history of Optimum, they started, you know, in the Bronx, okay? Right. And from nowhere, over the last 30 years also, you've grown into a major business over here. And I think there's a feeling of pride when something's made here, okay? You know, it's the pride. You know, made in Brooklyn, okay? There was that approach with made in Brooklyn. It hasn't reached the made in the Bronx, but you know, they're trying to do the Bronx in different markets. But I think different products are made in different markets.
One of the things we did in our windows on Madison Avenue in 49th is we're the largest user of fine Italian Worcesters for men's suits and jackets. So in one of our windows, we had a map of Italy in the Biella region where all these great fabrics are made. And in the other window, we put a map of New Bedford, Massachusetts to show that we have that range of going from kind of a global idea to a more local, more personal, more American point of view. And so that got so much attention that people said, well, it's like Italy and a map of, and then you have a map of New Bedford.
How do your salespersons, how do they sell the made in America to consumers or to their suppliers?
Again, our salespeople go out and promote that, but you know, I take it as more of a comfort, as Joseph is saying. You know, being manufactured here in the United States gives the end user that comfort that they have somebody to back up the product, and we're seeing a lot of imports coming in and not being backed. So it's one transaction, and sometimes it's not successful, and that leaves a bad taste in the client's, as far as experience is concerned. So I would tell you that it's more of a comfort knowing that there is a brick and mortar locally, there's a staff locally that's going to support them throughout the whole process. So that's why I think it's very important to promote that.
Robert?
Our team takes a very honest approach in our presentations as far as the pitch, the sales pitch. Most of our work takes place in Manhattan, so we'll always encourage our clients or potential client to come down to the Navy Yard, visit the shop, and see for themselves. And for the most part, the company usually sells itself because, again, people want to see that their products are being made correctly, safely, in a building that could support the volume and so on.
Your company is profiled in Made in New York City website, which is interesting because it's promoting Made in New York City. There aren't that many companies, alphabetically, but it's nice to see that over there. Now, I'll give you an interesting point of view. There is a company who makes suits today. They've opened up a couple of places. Suit Supply is one, and then there's another one not too far from the Men's Warehouse on Madison Avenue.
There's a My Suit company.
My Suit.
Yeah, they're custom.
They're custom, but both of them are custom made in. My Suit is made in Mexico.
Yeah, I think they also make in. I think some of it's in China, but
right, Mexico and China.
Right.
So it's it's a custom made, but it doesn't have that loyalty product.
Well, I think not to disparage product that's made offshore.
No, it's
right. There are levels clearly of quality that come from all over the world, but it's very interesting when you're looking at companies that do make in America. I say the distinction is, it's not that we just wave the flag because we make in America. We do it because we make it well in America, and that's it. And I think customers and consumers are starting to understand there is a distinction when you go to quality companies like we have here today, that it's made well. It isn't just that we're waving the flag. So I applaud you guys for doing that.
There are different opportunities in different sections of New York City and different places. Why are they going to the Yard?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we're living in this time now where so many of young consumers love experience-based shopping. And so for us, in part, I think it's what's Rob describing, which is just being able to invite a customer out to your shop. But then we as well have this whole series of tours that we do with just the general public. But you actually get to go inside manufacturing space and see how things are being made and then participate in it yourself. And so we have a really popular one with Kings County Distillery, which is sort of a no-brainer. But they're the first distillery that opened in the 5 boroughs since Prohibition, and now there's, I think, 100 of them. But they have people flooding through there all the time, people in their 20s and 30s who are really into looking at the stills and seeing that this product is made here. And then, of course, you end with a tasting, which is a nice experience. But Rob's company has participated in those tours as well under the umbrella of Heavy Metal, where we bring people around to a bunch of different metal fabricators in the yard, and you get to actually participate and do stuff.
Isn't it true that Rob made the gates for the yard?
Yes, and he also made our bike racks. So we try as much as we can ourselves to, kick business
support
back
your
to our,
manufacturers.
yeah, exactly.
The only thing is, even though he's upstate, he can do some windows for the yard.
That's true.
I have
I was after today, certainly. But I think our biggest thing right now is we opened this new building called Building 77, which is 1 million square feet. And there we're making the entire ground floor public. And it's a food manufacturing hub anchored by Russ and Daughters, who's been a New York institution for over 100 years, 103 years, But they're a perfect example, right? Because they have 15,000 square feet. They're making challah, they're making rugala, they're making all of the products that we know them for. And so when you come through, you're going to be able to look through these glass windows and see the baking and see the manufacturing that's happening.
Which I think in many aspects, the Chelsea market was the first situation in that approach, where people could see the food with the artisanals being manufactured and then sold to the consumer.
Exactly. And you, like as a consumer, you love that. You're shopping socially consciously. You can see that it was just quality made, it's fresh, it's so real. And I think it makes people believe, honestly, too, that manufacturing is still flourishing in New York, and that has real value.
Getting back to my other question, how do you get quality people? Fine, many of them started with Joseph 30 years ago. Yeah. How do you get that next generation of millennials to want to get involved with manufacturing, to work? How?
Well, we've been doing inside training. A lot of the technology today, when my father started the business, everything was manual welding. We've invested in robotics. So today, tapping into New York universities, we're getting young people coming out of college with 3D rendering backgrounds and programming backgrounds, and we're getting them not only to do what they do best, but also letting them evolve into the manufacturing, showing how the 3D world in programming can turn out a product on the opposite side. So we have robotic welding, we have lasers, so on and so forth. So with the technology today, you're able to expand upon that and gain the interest of the younger crowd.
And you?
Yeah, we have a very similar model where we show the value of the end product to the younger people that actually want to get involved in manufacturing. I think once we take them to a few job sites and they see these beautiful products that we've built, whether they're bronze doors or mezzanines or feature walls, whatever that might be, they see that there's actually a value in going through the journey of the apprenticeship program or the training program. It's so much more than just sanding or grinding. There's an end result that after several years of learning all the fundamentals of metalwork, at some point you could be a leader of an installation team, or you could be a lead craftsman. And again, that encourages everybody to want to just learn more.
Now, Joseph, I think you're fortunate because there are enough TV shows on showing, on the runway.
Yeah, I suppose.
Okay, that it looks really wonderful and sexy to be manufacturing, and it's a great industry.
Right.
But you yourself know it's a difficult thing.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because all the glamour is about 10% of it, and the rest of it is, hard work and dedication. The workforce that we have there is very family oriented. So we have mothers and daughters, brothers, and it's very interesting culturally how the people that have worked in our factory are so connected. They are a family. One of the things I always say, and probably very similar to you guys, is when you step inside that factory, it's magic. It's the most creative place you could ever. It's not Fifth Avenue or Madison Avenue. The most creative place for me is being in the design shop there, because to your point, I can get my hands dirty, we can come up with new ideas, and it's always so inspiring. And also, the people will go into our stores and they with pride will say, I made that lapel, I made that shoulder. And you can't buy that, you can't pay for that. And that's the magic of Made in America.
It's so important. I remember, because I've been involved with financing or involved in certain aspects of real estate, and when I pass a building that maybe I was involved with the financing of it, I feel proud. Yeah. Okay, you feel that it came up over there.
Wonderful.
And when I when I walk around the city and I see the changing landscape of the city and the changing landscape of the yard and all the others, it gives you a pride. I guess this is a question. Is it more expensive, or how much more expensive is it to have something made in America?
I don't think it's a direct comparison. I think in many cases it is more expensive. But there are so many benefits: speed to market, consistency, quality, knowing your business, it's more of a hands-on experience. And there are plenty of manufacturers around the world that do a great job. For me, though, it's been our competitive edge as an American designer to have our own factory. I mentioned this to you before, Michael, I can move on a dime. If I think the shoulder should be changed, or we can
otherwise, going to China, there's a container.
There's communication issues, there's time frames, where this is really amazing in terms of speed to market.
How are banks that you're dealing with, where you have lines of credit? Banks worry about manufacturing because it's not a finished product. Okay, how are you perceived? How is the lending community willing to do business with you?
I gotta say, we're in a blessed situation that we really don't have that scenario. At this point, we really haven't had to go through the rigors of going to banks at this present time. So
you're pretty, and yourself?
For us, the banks look at stability of the company, cash flow, and also projected sales. So we're fortunate enough right now, what's happening in the economy, where it feels like to us we're on an upswing. We have enough work to take us through the next year and a half.
Great.
So,
Joseph?
Positive.
Well, the great part about being a designer is I can defer all of that to our very talented team at Taylor Brands. And it's really, I think, though, at the end of the day, we look at, as we're the largest player in menswear, we have very strong relationships financially, but our team does an amazing job of really understanding the value of manufacturing in America.
And last but not least, does the Development Corp have any involvement with aiding and financing?
I mean, for us it's easy because we have a real estate product, but as well we have a lot of relationships with, I think, in particular SBA-backed lenders who are, I think, putting a lot of thought to this very question, which is how can we help support manufacturing growth? And there's a lot more lenders, particularly in New York, who are looking to get into that space. And so for us, we feel like there's a role we can play in supporting our small businesses by making those connections and making sure that they're able to access the capital they need.
So in conclusion, it's great to be made in America, and I'm happy that I've assembled this group of people. Even though you're not a manufacturer, you're very involved with the manufacturing. I'd like to thank Joseph, Claire, Robert, Candido, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.